and welcome back to BookTube with Amy. This is going to be my end of month wrap up and I need to apologise for the absolute lack of wrap ups this month. I usually do weekly wrap ups, but I just haven't read so I had nothing to talk to you about. It is what it is. It's just been a bit of a crazy month, to be honest. Work has been wild and that's really taken a lot out of me, so by the time I'm getting home in the evenings, like, I'm ready to sit down on the sofa with a cup of tea and go to my bed and I'm just wiped. And when I'm like travelling to and from work and stuff, I've been mainly getting taxis, to be honest, because the weather has been terrible and public transport has been awful with all the strikes and stuff that's been happening. They've just been very unreliable and the demand has been there that they've not been able to satisfy, so I've been like missing out on some commute time where I would normally take that to like read. But also, like, truth be told, on the days where I am getting public transport and like I do have the time to read, I'm like trying to G myself up for work or like trying to shut off from work, and usually books are such a great way to help me do that, but it is just like no been happening this month. I have read some, so I'll talk you through the 3 books that I've managed to read for the month and one that I am currently reading. Hopefully will finish before December ends. So the first book I read in December was The Untold Story by Genevieve Cogman, and this is the last book in the Invisible Library series. It was amazing. 5-star. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know that I recommend this series all the time on this channel, but now that I have finished it, like, I cannot recommend it enough. It was just phenomenal and it was done in such a way that you feel like the overarching storyline that has been going on through this 8-book series was wrapped up brilliantly, but there's also like enough side characters and enough magic and intrigue in this world that like Genevieve Cogman really could go back and like dive in and write some more, which would be amazing. I'd love if she did, but I know she's moving on to focus on another series, which I will absolutely read after how much I've enjoyed this. But it was such a great ending. You know, it's an 8-part series and I sometimes think that it's so much easier to wrap up a duology or a trilogy than it is a multi-part series, because somebody has invested so much time into it, and you know, you're never going to be able to please everybody and know every character's going to get a happy ending. But Genevieve Cogman has done such an amazing job. There are no unanswered questions, which is consistently my gripe with fantasy, you know, is that a lot of the time it ends and you're like, aye, okay, but what about this thing? Did that not have any consequence on the plot then? No, did that just randomly happen? But in this, it was done so brilliantly, and the last book takes a pretty dark turn, and throughout this entire series there's been like a real focus on who can't you and who can you trust, and you know, Irene has toed and froed on that quite a lot, and I as a reader have toed and froed on that quite a lot, and you know, it really ramps up into this final book. You go into this final book like genuinely being like, I can't trust nobody. Like, everybody could have ulterior motives, everybody could be using Irene for like their own wee faction, and it was so amazing. If you like a series that has a pretty detailed magic system, that has, you know, different alternate worlds, so every book feels very different and has some amazing characters and is pretty politically heavy, then Invisible Library series is the series for you. I loved it, and truth be told, it was finishing that series that put me into a slump, because I had just had such an amazing time with it. And you know, I've got my granny reading this series, and when Simon's mum was still with us, I had her starting to read the series, and so like, it just has such a special place in my heart that I got to share it with the 2 brilliant women. And I was very sad that I had finished it, but also very pleased. I had only planned to read the next 2 books in the series this year as part of my I seriously need to finish this challenge, but I actually ended up finishing the entire series because they were just pretty binge worthy and I loved it. So then I knew I was getting pretty slumpy, and round about Christmas, like, I normally will try to pick up a non-fiction or short stories because my head just is never really in it because work does get so heavy. So I picked up a non-fiction, and I picked up Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix. So this wasn't the best, right, and I'll get into why in a wee minute, but I sort of went into this thinking that it was going to be, like, I guess, loads of different bits about all these different books, right? And it was, but I thought, like, it was going to have a lot more social commentary than it did. Like, I thought it was maybe going to pick a horror subject and be like, right, okay, so killer dolls were really big during this period, and like this is maybe why they were big, and then like these are the books about these killer dolls that, you know, would be recommended. And so I thought it was going to be a lot more political than it was, considering horror as a genre is often pretty political, and I felt like that was missing for here. Like, there was no real social commentary around why these themes were popular at those specific times, or like any comparison really to what was happening in society at that time, other than when they talk about satanic panic. But like, I feel like everybody knows about that, and so like it wasn't bringing me anything new. The two big issues that I had with this book, to be honest, was the introduction just left a really bad taste in my mouth, and like sort of it put me off reading the book a bit before I had even properly started, but I decided to persevere. But essentially, the foreword in this is talking about how 80s horror was so popular, and you know, the crux as to why Grady Hendrix and this other guy who runs the podcast that this is based on, whose name escapes me, is it Eric someday? I can't find it. Anyway, I'm not going to flip through the entire book looking. So the crux of it was that basically it just wasn't woke. And so therefore was far superior because they didn't care about who they offended. And like, I just really didn't vibe with that attitude. I'm going to stop holding this up because it's quite a heavy book and it's shiny as. I just really didn't vibe with that attitude at all. Like, I think that you can create an absolutely brilliant horror novel. You can have great social commentary, you can have great political commentary, you can have great character development, like, and you can no offend anybody. You know, I think obviously with horror, it would depend on what they were trying to say was offensive. Like, I think that if you pick up horror as a genre but you find violence offensive, then it's probably not the genre for you. I think that most horror books, there is a certain element of violence that would come with it. You know, gore also goes hand in hand with that. But if you're trying to say that, well, the example that they used in this was a book in the 80s that was basically about wee Nazi gnomes, and you know, I don't think that Nazis are ever funny, and you know, I feel like Jewish people would have a right to be offended at that. And you know, the horror that I read and the horror that I like to promote in this channel is like any other piece of literature that I would ever promote to you, and it is, you know, I'm not going to say woke, it is inoffensive. You know, I would never pick up a book by somebody where I felt like there were comments in there that were racist or misogynistic or you know, transphobic. I have called it Graham Masterton on my channel because I got an article one of his books and it was hella transphobic, and I have says I will never pick up another Graham Masterton book or promote that author again on my channel, even though I have done in the past. And you know, there are other authors that I don't promote on this channel because I do not agree with nor believe in a value that they hold, and I preach all the time about responsible consumerism. And you know, so going into this book with a viewpoint of they're only promoting these books because they are not woke, it really just really turned me off. And like, I was pretty peeved. There are so many amazing horror authors out there that write exceptional horror work, and they don't need to cause offence to a particular group of people, and I would actually class Grady Hendrix as one of them. However, after reading this book, it's sort of skewed the way I view Grady Hendrix a wee bit, because I didn't understand why you put your name on something like that is promoting the message these are great because they're no woke, and like it's fine if you offend folk. Like that's just a weird flex to me as an author, but fine. If you are looking for some absolutely brilliant horror that is no offensive to any particular groups of people, read David Sodergren. Like that is all I can say. Like David Sodergren is my ultimate horror author at this point. I doubt he will be dethroned, and his books are phenomenal. They are gory and grotesque and twisted and horrific, but like he murders everybody in his books. Everybody is fair game, and you know, anything that I have read by him has always been great rep, and there has no been anything in it that has triggered me as being offensive. Anyway, I digress, right? I'm still on part 1 of this rant about this fucking book, but it was just a weird stance, and so it was a weird mindset to go into this, and I then feel like I didn't take the recommendations seriously, because I was like, right, okay, are you promoting me this book because you genuinely think that this is a good book, or are you just promoting it to me because it's no woke, right? So that was part 1, and I was expecting my TBR to like balloon after reading this book, and it did not, because I just really couldn't take the recommendations seriously. I couldn't take them with a pinch of salt after those initial comments. So that was the first reason why I didn't like it. And then the second reason why I didn't like it is I felt like it wasn't historically accurate, right? So this is supposed to be like a breakdown of paperback mass market fiction in the 70s or 80s, well, 70s and 80s, and there were just some key players in here that were left out for me. Now, Clive Barker and Stephen King were the two that were left out here, right? Where I feel like they should have been mentioned. Now, if this was just going to be like wee B-side horror, I would understand why those two authors would be left out. Fair enough. You know, Grady Hendrix, and I'm going to say Eric because that's what I think his name is, or maybe promoting some like underground, underbelly, publishing, you know, small press that's been forgotten about. Cool. But they had other big authors in here. Like they spoke about James Herbert. They spoke about V.C. Andrews and the Flowers in the Attic series, and you know, they talk about like Jaws, they talk about the Exorcist books, so like there are some household well-known names that are in here. So then it felt really weird to me that there were certain authors that were left out. So therefore, again, it just didn't feel like it was actually painting an accurate picture. Now, nobody needs to be promoting Clive Barker or Stephen King, come on, like they're legends within their own right. But if you're going to write a non-fiction book about the impact of horror paperback in the 70s and 80s, they guys need to be mentioned, because you can't deny the impact that they had on an entire genre during that period of time. So then I was like, right, okay, so now I can't take your recommendation seriously, and I feel like it's not even factually accurate because you are missing out pretty prolific horror writers but choosing to mention others. And that just again didn't sit right with me, and I wasn't sure if maybe like it was written by Grady Hendrix and so maybe he was leaving out some horror authors that were a wee bit more prolific than him. I didn't know, like that's just my speculation. Didn't be coming for me. But I just really didn't like it. In the end, I rated it a 2-star. It was pretty poor. I wouldn't recommend you to check it out, to be honest. I didn't take any great recommendations away from it, and my pretty overall experience of the book is just being a bit pissed off about it. So it didn't really help me through my slump, it just made me fucking angry. So then to pull me out of my slump, I thought that I would finish off another series, and so I read The Goldilocks Words by A.J. Hackworth, and this is the third and final book in the Hell's Library trilogy. Now, I was a wee bit dubious going into the third one because the first one was like absolute 5-star, couldn't gush enough about it. The second one, it was good, but I felt like some bits of the second one were a wee bit forced and it wasn't quite as great as the first one. So the third one, I was like, this is either going to make or break it for me. It was enjoyable. I had a really fun time with it. I ended up rating this one a 4-star. I'm not going to say too much plot-wise on this because again, it is the last in a trilogy. I really enjoyed it, and I feel like a lot of my issues for the second book were resolved by the time we got to the third book, and so this one mirrored the first book a lot more, and that the gang were back together and they were all working together, and that was brilliant. Really great to see. I really loved I think the characters overall, right? Like, it's one of these series where like you've got to suspend disbelief a wee bit at some of the stuff that's happening, and like some of it plot wise is a wee bit of a stretch, but the characters pull the book through, and I really just love the characters in here. Claire and Brevity are like my two main gals. I love them so much. Claire, I feel more than Brevity as a character that I will really miss. She's just such a great main character, and you know, she cares for the other characters in this book so deeply that like you can't help but care for them so deeply as well. And Claire is just, she's a bit of a lovable fuck up. Like, she doesn't always get things right. You know, she isn't always the perfect main character that I think a lot of YA fantasy tries to make the main female protagonist. You know, she fucks up and she owns it, and she makes mistakes, and she doesn't always communicate effectively, and you know, she owns it, and it just makes me love her so much more. Like, I always love a flawed character far more than a perfect character, because like they're just more relatable. But this was absolutely fantastic. It was a really good end to the series. I think that there shouldn't have been more in this series. I think that this wraps things up pretty well. I don't know if it says this, but I gave this a 4 stars. It wasn't as phenomenal as the first book, but it was a really good way to round out the series. And overall, I would recommend the Invisible Library series more than the Hell's Library series. I think that is a far better ride and a far better time. That is all I have read for the entire month of December. I am currently about halfway through Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater, and that is the first in the Dreamers trilogy. Grey Warren came out, which is the third one, so I am allowing myself to binge read those. I'm not going to say my thoughts on Call Down the Hawk at this stage because I am not sure if I will finish it in December or no, because I'm still pretty slumpy, and then obviously we're going to have like Christmas and stuff, so we're spending time with the family, and I am working all Christmas, so I will be back at it for like early doors Boxing Day. I only get the one day off, which is Christmas Day, to spend with people, so I just don't think I'm going to get a hell of a lot of reading done, to be honest. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!